Welcome to the Sunday Jabberwocky, episode 1. I am, of course, your host, Ao. I have over here Batman, and we have a special guest tonight. Introduce yourself.
My name is Mark Westmore, thank you.
Awesome. So, we
The
start
best
off...
way to begin, I think, is to discuss exactly how he met Mark Westmore.
Yes.
Hey, you.
Okay, so, I initially stated that Batman here should get a, obviously, fake plastic Batman mask to wear for tonight's premiere show, and he said he'll go look for it, and unfortunately he didn't find one, and then he found this, which is, what is that mask?
The Silence. Anyone who knows Doctor Who, look it up, knows the Silence.
That's that English show, isn't it, that everybody raves about?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we were talking and stuff, and then we decided to go to a local smoke shop where we go pick up our hookah provisions, which we're using right now, as you can obviously tell. And then Batman was with me, wearing exactly what you see here. And this gentleman was outside and wanted to take a picture with him, known as a selfie. It's not really a selfie if there's more than one people in there, because self, the definition of self is one. Now it's like a double E or whatever, but that's my semantics getting into the way right there. And then we later find out that this guy is awesome. So, what's your point of view on the whole matter?
Well, I first noticed a couple of gentlemen, if they'll allow such a description. Actually, two people, one looked like that. In fact, I think he's the very same person, and I can't remember who addressed whom first, but you don't see this every day. And so I said something, maybe, and they came up and chatted with me, and we were smoking cigars and talking about hookahs, and I think... I don't know, I think that face there, he's doing very well. We've used the latest techniques in dermatological processes, the integration of the physical sciences to the biological domain, of course being subset of the physics, etc.
They decided I talked too much, so they decided to sew my mouth shut.
But it didn't work.
Clearly.
And so anyway, he really is looking good. This is, I would say, quite representational of how he looked at birth. It's been a long time, but he's coming quite along, and we're happy. We've used the before and after pictures to do this, and we'll show those maybe in some other time.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let's just show them right now. Okay, here's before, and here's after. So
I like how your neck skin moves as you show your before and after.
my neck skin has a mind of its own, much like, well, we won't get into that here, but much like other things.
I do have a question. The sombrero. Now, I noticed there are colors in the sombrero, which kind of they blend well with the colors on your face. There's a kind of crimson and brown and burnt sienna and burnt and melted, etc. Why did you choose that hat of all possible choices?
Quite frankly, it was sitting up there in the cabinet.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys can't see it, but off the screen over to this direction, there's a plastic cabinet thing with a bunch of stuff, and that's where this hat was. And I'm just like, oh, hey, put this on, and he did. And
Oh, excuse me, I have a pustule.
oh God.
Oh, okay, that one's gone.
If you're going to do it, at least get a bowl, because we can use them later, because I've brought with me macaroni and cheese. How can you go wrong?
Well, is that supposed to be microphone?
Well, quite frankly, I mean, if you start using this pustule, it's just basically like using the butter that's necessary to bind the two if you come right down to it.
I'm going to vomit.
That's okay.
That's okay, we have a trash
We
can
have
right
a
back here off the
receptacle.
No, that's full
A
of lighters.
respectable. Oh, of course, yes. It wasn't yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. That's neither here or there.
It was after a very long party, we'll say.
Well, for those of you following this channel, you'll know that I ran into some technical difficulty issues with video syncing and, the syncing issues between video and audio on Pinnacle Studio 17 Ultimate. And I have gotten that issue fixed with Handbrake, as you've been hearing with the whole vlog stuff I've been doing as well. And I finally got to show up on Thursday, and I got to show up earlier today. And what Handbrake does is, just in case, once again, you don't watch the other videos on this channel, is it alters the FPS, or the frames per second, on the video from variable frame rate to constant frame rate, forcing the frames of the video and the audio to sync 1 per 1, thus removing any possibility for video and audio desyncing in pretty much any video editing software.
Now I have a question. You said it forces a frame rate.
Yes.
Now, by forcing, do you mean that the program somehow uses coercion or to interfere with the property?
That is an excellent question. What happens actually is the program threatens the video that if it becomes out of sync, what will happen is the video will actually get smacked. You know?
I see. So
Just smacks back and forth.
So shall we say that this use of force, when you force a frame rate to change, let's say from 29.9372 whatever, or to 30, or to 24, I mean, when you come from my era, the Paleolithic era in filmmaking, of course, we're talking about film and frames per second, and we didn't have these gizmos such as these. This is a new digital thing I'd like to point out, but we're going to talk about that later. So we're going to offer you something tonight that you will not hear later, except on this show. But anyway, getting back to that. So the use of force. Do you believe that something was coerced? That is, did someone give up his right
Yes.
to property or liberty or
yes.
the pursuit of happiness
Well, yes.
in order to attain this change, this force from this frame rate to that frame rate, or did it seek its own level, as it were?
Well, what it actually does is it goes in and it starts a shadow government within the video itself.
For those of you that are familiar with the United States, you already know about the shadow government.
Or we don't.
That's the whole point of the shadow government in the end, isn't it?
And then it sends off the children of the videos off to war and threatens that they're going to be killed by the virtual form of ISIS unless the video cooperates.
Also known as YouTube. Also known as YouTube.
Yes.
Aha. So if we talk about children forms, we must be therefore implying there are parent levels of this technology. Because in order to have a child, certainly must have a parent, mustn't we?
Well,
Of course, we call it the black and white motion pictures that you may be familiar with.
he's not,
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
he's not that old.
We're going to cut to commercial right now. No,
Yes,
I am
Kraft
that old,
macaroni.
actually. I am that old. But that's okay.
Kraft macaroni and cheese, brought to you by GMOs via Monsanto. Yum, yum, cancer.
Yes, and quite frankly, these macaroni and cheese have no ingredient that a human can ever pronounce.
Except for a couple.
Yes, like
Processed
macaroni.
cheese food. No. Let's get down to
Let's see
basics.
here. Let's see here.
Quotations?
Let's see here. The ingredient.
Yes.
The
Processed
ingredients in this
cheese
product.
food. So what is processed cheese food, and why now? And let's ask ourselves also, buttery flavored topping. Whenever I have this food, I wonder,
That sounds like a sex tape.
buttery flavored topping
Well,
is
it's
something.
funny you bring that up, actually, because I happen to use this exact brand of mac and cheese during a very illicit affair. I won't go into the details of it, but yes, she was very into macaroni and cheese. Too bad she had to settle for
She
whatever
meaning
this is.
the operating system, of course.
Well, she meaning my left hand, actually.
So you're right-handed.
Yes,
Because
quite.
the left hand would then give one the feeling of there's a stranger involved
Right.
in the process.
That's the entire point of it.
Of
Have you ever heard of a
distilling.
dead hand? You know, you actually sit on your hand, and then you make it go numb, and then that way it feels like someone else's.
You mean, am I sitting on my hand now?
No.
Well,
Why
I
is it
hope
numb?
not.
I don't know. That may be a medical issue.
Might be indeed. Well, what about, you guys, I'm very thrilled that you had me on the show. I always wanted to ask you about maple flavored syrup. As opposed to maple syrup. I've really been...
Well, that's exactly the delineation between the Canadian syrup and your generic Walmart brand syrup. You see? So Walmart, in order to increase profits and make the food even less pronounceable, they decided to instead pop the pustules on that mask that I was wearing that was actually torn from a living being. Poor him.
Well, kind of living.
Well, sort of living.
Unless
I
we talk
suppose.
about the definition of life, and I'd like to touch on that later too, because in the preparation for this show tonight, in this interview, this gentleman asked me, we were going to talk about this, what questions might you have, and I always wanted to know about the definition of life. And if you can clear me up on that, I would really much more enjoy the consumption of this hookah.
Well, I believe the definition of life is to just do what you think is right in your nature, do what you think is right in your environment, and you won't go wrong. I mean, yes, there are extremists out there who do what they think is right, and they form things like Al Qaeda and ISIS and stuff. But just do what's right for mankind. Do what makes you happy. Just live, exist. Be there for those who are not yet there. Be there for those who've been there before you.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the official definition. According to IMDb, which I'm assuming is the authority.
Yeah,
the authority of it.
You mean
apparently,
IMDb?
No, it's IMDb. It's IMDb. So
I'm shocked
it's
that
actually,
you don't know IMDb, my friend.
It's a former police officer returns to the force after having been wrongly imprisoned for years. That is the definition of life.
Can one be rightly imprisoned?
Apparently,
Well,
they
if
can
they're-
by
if
implying wrongly imprisoned is a thing.
Well, no. They can be rightfully imprisoned if they're imprisoned via Republican thing, because
Let me ask you this.
that is the right wing.
Would you say that being imprisoned is the opposite of being free? And if being free is something that we might perceive as right, and I'll define that for you in a moment, but then can we have a proper wrongful application of non-rightness? That is to say, can we be properly or rightfully imprisoned? If we are doing what you've just said a moment ago, and that was that one should just pursue his vision of what he believes is the pursuit of happiness, etc. And what if my definition, that might include the destruction of others on your street, the blowing up of that Rolls Royce, that Bentley over there, etc.
Well, if you want to blow up the Bentley, go ahead. I mean, I don't care. That's an expensive piece of crap as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, but it's not a piece of crap. It's a nice machine.
But what's the MPG?
7.
On a good day.
Ish.
7-ish.
It's 7-ish.
On a good day.
On the highway. On the highway.
On a
so-
good day, yes. But
Certainly not in LA traffic, that's for sure.
may I be frank?
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
you may be Mark.
But I have an Uncle Frank, and he influences
Exactly.
me
So,
highly.
if you're gonna kind of like, let Frank flow through you, so to speak, become the embodiment of Frank, then I suppose I can allow it. But
He
in
didn't
true
mean
essence,
literally become. He meant be on the point. Be like direct with what he wishes to say.
I don't know. All
It's
I
a-
heard
it's
was
a
him
form
asking
of
to be
speech.
frank. I mean, quite frankly, it's just very confusing to me.
Everything's confusing to you, Batman.
Valid.
If there is a Batman, is there a Robin? And if so, why now? And why today?
Well, because
there-
Batman got tired of upholding the law, so he decided to start breaking it by robbing through those things.
Robin?
Exactly.
Is that triple entendre?
Possibly. There was a Robin in the earlier renditions of Batman from the 1980s to early 1990s. And also, even before that, when Adam West was playing Batman, there was a Robin. I don't know why there wasn't a Robin in the current movies, but, they are what they are.
Well, they actually realized that the whole underlying image of a grown man in tights with a young boy in tights was probably a bit off-putting for the most audiences in today's generation.
There is that.
But do you think that Batman and Robin, let's focus on the Robin, it is a derivative of the Round Robin or the Red Robin restaurant? And if so, how does that cuisine relate to Denny's today and the restaurant meals program?
Well, quite frankly, most restaurant meals today, and like most of them, Red Robin offers just about the same amount of selection as any of your local restaurants, which involves crap, and salt.
Aha, but you said any of your, quote unquote, so I'm taking that to mean me. I don't own any local restaurants. I own huge chains throughout the South and the lower Corregidor Islands and, of course, the Mariana Islands. And but be that as it may, what about that and the Denny's Grand Slam? And how do you justify that with the current social dilemma?
First off, I wouldn't actually call it a grand slam, so to speak. I mean, I've had it before. It's more of just a slam, quite frankly. Similar to the Big Mac.
It really is a
ultimate
slam
skillet.
when it's leaving you.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
so's Thai food, but it doesn't mean I need to subject myself to it every morning.
It
True.
depends on what you mean.
In fact, Thai food, I would probably consider more of a grand slam leaving you than any of the Denny's grand slam entrees.
That is true.
Especially when you add whatever the heck they make their hot sauce out of.
Well, I don't eat hot sauce. I can't handle that stuff.
Oh, that's funny because we've just put 1 quart of Tapatio, which I understand is made in these United States, into your brick or whatever you call that.
You know, speaking of made in the United States with foreign, strange-sounding names, did you guys know that the fortune cookie is not actually Asian?
Yes.
I did.
It was made
Actually,
here.
most of the quote unquote foreign foods, like Mexican food and Chinese food and all that stuff, is actually most commonly called Americanized and is created to appease the palates of people who live here rather than actually be authentic cuisine from that area of the world.
And I know that for a fact because I happened to go to China and I asked for General Shao's chicken, and what did they do? They looked at me like I was crazy. They said,
I asked for Deng Chao Pain,
we
and I
know
got
General
extra
Chao
dung
chicken.
and extra
We know
pain.
General Chao chicken.
I know
wonder if
too.
that's- I wonder if that's
but do you
considered
think we were
racist at all?
coerced tonight? You know, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but we did eat at a very well-known eatery in these parts.
Actually, it's not that well known. Not a lot of people know about it around here, surprisingly. It's a great restaurant, but it's kind
You're
of...
telling me Aunt Martha's Soup Kitchen on 3rd Street is not well known around here?
It depends on which audience you're speaking to, I suppose. Me being born and raised a spoiled rich white boy, I suppose I was kind of isolated from Aunt Martha's Soup Kitchen and was instead subjected to...
No, you weren't.
The Cheesecake
You just don't
Factory.
remember when they had you rolling out these things. Not barrels, but tortillas.
Yes, I actually suppressed those memories for a very good reason.
Yes, a threat of electroshock, or electroconvulsive therapy carries a lot of weight where I come from.
Indeed. And it should, because, electroshock... What is your brain but a giant mass of withering fats with
And Wuthering
a bunch
Heights.
with a bunch of electricity? What makes us human is just a bunch of electricity. So you bring in more electricity in there, you can actually alter people's personalities with enough electroshock therapy and stuff. And if you watched Captain America: The Winter Soldier, you would have seen greatly exaggerated, but possibly not that much far off from reality, science fiction type of scenario, where electroshock can actually change someone so drastically that they forget who they are, and they are whoever is in charge of the trigger wants them to be.
Spoiler alert.
Well, I agree 99.37825%, like killing household bacteria. I bought a spray today at Savan. Some of you know it as Savon. And guaranteed to kill 99.37, well, actually pi reduced by 33.2%, which is an odd thing, but we'll get to that later. I have a question for you. How does that tie in with mitochondrial DNA, and why now?
Oh man, we're right now our audience is probably a bunch of drunk or high people. They're not going to understand about any sort
What
of
is mitochondrial
Are
DNA?
you talking about midichlorian?
Yes, of course.
That's Jedi stuff, and that's like a really cheap way George Lucas explains how the Force is used. Because midichlorian, I believe, is an actual thing, and most of the fan base did not take that explanation too well.
Did they take it at all?
Well, of course. I mean, they're the fan base. They have to accept what is canon within the Star Wars universe's lore, but they view the whole midichlorian thing as the way Jedi and Sith or Force users manipulate said Force and stuff is a very cheap way. They're expecting more of something along the lines of magic, but having it an actual physical thing really takes, the wispiness of the Force away, and it's no longer like fantasy sci-fi. It's just sci-fi now.
Yes, it's been dumbed down. Now, I don't want to impinge. I don't want to do product placement, but I'm holding my favorite beverage here, and I don't want to let the audience see this unless you approve of it, of course.
What are the audience going to do? Complain to the actual makers of that beer, and then they're going to yell at us for giving them free advertising?
Maybe.
Yes, and then they're going to sue you.
No, that's when I punch him in the face for being stupid.
Oh, good. So, with reckless abandon, here. By the way, thank you very much for this microphone.
You're welcome.
I think it's very, very pleasing, and I like the sonorance of it.
Interesting.
Personally, I've never had any success trying to suck on microphones, but I've had quite a lot of success with hoses.
You haven't tried a sharp.
So, is there anything interesting that's happened to you the past week, Batman?
Well, let's see here. I bought a silence mask. I was asked to take a selfie with some random person. I almost said no because I despise the term selfie.
And I despise the term random.
You're right.
No, not
very general person. No, I don't think so. The most exciting thing that happens in my life is that I have a successful bowel movement.
And from what I hear, it wasn't successful. But I have a question for you, Batman. Do you think that it might offend me, I haven't answered it, that you call yourself Batman as opposed to Bat Person? Because how should I not be offended that the employment of generic terminology, that is, that etymologically speaking, the word man might refer not to a male per se, but as a humankind, and that I might not wish to identify myself with any gender?
Well, let me
Clearly, you've watched George Carlin.
let me just check quickly here.
Oh my God.
Yes, definitely Batman.
Well, not Bat Person.
Well, because there is actual parts there.
So I shouldn't be offended.
No, you should not be.
Am I given to understand that by there are parts there that the clitoris is not a part? That is to
Quite.
say, okay.
Quite.
Very
When
well.
did we suddenly turn British?
It happens. I have what's called singular personality disorder.
Really? You only have one personality?
Oh,
That must be very difficult.
Oh, it is
That's-
terrible.
What is
suck.
it like to live with a singular personality over the multiple that both Alex and I enjoy and live?
Ich habe gar keine Ahnung. Ich kann auf jeden Fall kein Verständnis von diesen Ideen, damit ich frage mich, warum hat diese Welt das
Can you
Land...
believe he insulted you in that native tongue?
What did he say?
Quite frankly, he said... Well, I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but... It narrows down to... Your face is like a fan when rotating and hit with large amounts of feces.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. I have never
Thankfully,
felt
I
more
have-
understood. I want to just take a break, if we can. I've never felt more understood in today's life.
Nice. Well, instead of breaks, we can just end the show and just, chill and stuff. So,
Already.
Well, I mean,
And it's not going to be a long show. It's only like, 20 minutes or some odd. That's all we really need. So, is there anything of any more importance or anything you wish to add to this video podcast?
I would say there is.
All right.
First of all, I'd like to know what we mean by importance. And by importance, I mean a measure of how much property is affected. That is, my three types of property. My physical being, primordial property, my ideas, my primary property, and my anything that's derivative thereof. My jacket, my pants, if you call these pants, a little bit dirty. I didn't use biz with dirt-eating enzymes. I should like to say that, having forgotten the point, I rather like this.
Yes, for those of you that are just tuning in, this is his third time smoking hookah for us senior hookah smokers of AAO, myself. But,
It's really quite lovely.
yes, yes.
And it does things that I've never experienced before, except the two other times that I've gone on a talk show like this, and they served ice water.
and stuff
Water,
like
yeah,
that.
with a nice pitcher.
Speaking of which, would you like a bottle of water or something?
I shouldn't mind it at all.
All right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and end this show because we've explained a lot of stuff, and our viewers are probably so confused that to continue this would probably just drive them away.
Remember one thing. Confusion is the absence or opposite of non-confusion, which we shall say would be understanding or enlightenment. And this microphone is the key to the scriptures. And I owe that all to you. Too.
Awesome. All right, so for all of you and all of us, I am Ao.
I'm Batman. and he's smoking.
I am who you wish me to be.
He is a man of few but many words. Until next week. See you later.